Hey, I may edit this out later, but yeah, comfort. Been messing around in my room and um shut my microphone off, something, I don't know. But anyway, hey y'all, hey, this is your girl Deborah J. But today I wanted to come to you guys talking about a topic that I talk about, but I don't always talk about. But it's a topic that needs to continuously be talked about, if you will. So I'm gonna start again with you guys. So again, this is Deborah J. Welcome back to my Harobeds Thoughts channel. And again, I'm Deborah Jefferson, and today we're going to be talking about 5 questions that can make a narcissist uncomfortable. 5 questions that can make a narcissist uncomfortable, okay? So we're going to just get right into it. I'm not going to do no jaw jacking and no shucking and jiving and none of that stuff. We're just going to get right into it, right? So, hey girl, hey. So, now, we're going to dive deep into the now, before we get started, I just want to say this. This video is not meant to, it's not about diagnosing anyone. It's about recognizing patterns. And of course, I am not a medical doctor. I'm just a narcissistic abuse survivor. So I speak from experience, okay? So we're going to just go into this and just start talking about patterns because, like I said, I survived narcissistic abuse in both, of course, my marriage and, other relationships as well. So I've learned, a lot over the years, right? And I learned that sometimes the answers that people give you, they're not as nearly as important as their reactions when you ask them difficult questions. So we're going to get into that. So now many of us are taught to look for chemistry, oh, we got, I can feel that vibe, I feel his vibe, her vibe, or whatever, because it can be male, female, which is typically male. The pattern is typically in males, and that's what we're going to focus on today. All right, I'm just going to keep it real, right? So again, we can, that chemistry, like, oh, we were vibing, we clicking, right? That attraction, of course, he tall, dark, and handsome. He like, light brown, a little almond, like they said on Martin. But and then and with all of that comes that he could be walking or not having no transportation or just lost his job by looking for no in between jobs. So you see, but he got skills, right? So you see that potential, right? But what we should be looking for is his character, ladies. His character, okay? So now character can kind of show up when someone is asked a question that they don't want to answer. That's when their true character can come out. Unless they're just a real strong, covert narcissist. But we'll get into that in other videos. But I want to start with question number 1 that you should be asking. And this one here is, what was your part in your last relationship ending? That's a good question to ask them. Now, this question is powerful because it requires accountability. You got to take some kind of accountability in a previous relationship ending. Both parties got to take some kind of accountability, right? So now most people can tell you everything that their ex did wrong. They can tell you how they were hurt, betrayed, disappointed, or mistreated, right? But can they tell you where they failed or where they fell short, right? That's the kind of thing that you look for. Can they admit that they made mistakes, right? Can they acknowledge that they contributed to the breakdown of the relationship? That's another one. But, one of the things that I've noticed in unhealthy relationships is that somehow every story ended with someone else being the villain, right? Every ex was crazy, she was crazy, she was this, she was that, even on a job, when they were changing jobs all the time, their boss was jealous of me, they always wanting me, they always, or friendships, they all fake, they ain't no real friend, they, yeah, those kind of things, right? Or even with family members, they swear everybody against them, nobody like them. Why? Why don't nobody like you, right? That's the kind of stuff. That's the way you got to start thinking. Okay, now why Don't nobody in his family like him. Nobody, everybody don't nobody trust him. Why? What is it? Don't nobody want him to come around. What is it, right? So again, like I said, at some point you gotta ask yourself, is everyone, like I said, is everyone really the problem? Or is there a pattern? And sometimes we can put on them rose colored glasses and we can ignore those patterns. But ladies, I'm here to tell you, take them glasses off. Even though these ain't rose colored, I'm gonna take them off for a second. But yeah, take them rose colored glasses off. You got to. So like I said, you start realizing, okay, is this a pattern? Because healthy people, for the most part, usually be like, okay, I could have handled that differently. That shows some kind of growth right there. Even if it's a little bit, they can see where they could have handled the situation another way. How things could have went better. So anything that they could have done different. Not even just saying that they caused everything, but it's a two-way street. So you got to be able to accept your part in it. So we're gonna bring me to question number 2. When was the last time that you admitted that you were wrong? And all of them are big, but that's another big one. It sounds simple, right? But it tells you a lot. It tells you a lot. So, let's be honest, right? Nobody likes being wrong, right? Of course, none of us like being wrong. That's normal, right? But, emotionally mature people can understand that being wrong doesn't make them worthless. Like somebody's gonna be wrong sometime or another, right? But you're human. You're human. But a narcissistic person often struggles with criticism because it threatens the image that they created for themselves. That mask that they put on, that destroys that mask. Like it breaks it down. So they can't stand that. They can't stand that. They want to be perfect. In their image, they want to be perfect and then they have this image of you as well, but they want to be perfect. We're gonna stick on that one, but they want to be, seen as this perfect person, right? And yeah, it doesn't work that way, right? It does not work that way. So instead of admitting fault, they'll make excuses, all kind of excuses. Oh, I did this because of that, or I did this because they did this. They may blame, like I said, blame the other person. Oh, she was acting all crazy, so I had to do this, or she did this, so I ain't have no choice but to do this, or she made me do it. All the things, y'all get my drift, right? They'll rewrite history. Oh, they'll paint a whole nother picture, tell a whole nother story than what actually went down, right? And if you happen to meet the ex, or you're gonna find out the real deal. I'm telling you. You're gonna be like, now they told me all this stuff, and then none of it was true. Really, they rewrite history. They might even convince themselves. I mean, they really wholeheartedly will believe it themselves that they did nothing wrong at all. Nothing. I'm telling you. So you got to ask yourself this. Have you ever been able to, have a disagreement with this person and actually receive an apology? Think about that. Like, you guys sit down and you have a discussion, sit down, stand up, or whatever, and y'all have a discussion about a situation that happened, and they don't offer any kind of apology. Even they can even apologize for the way they said something to you, or the way they touched you, or just for example. But they don't take any kind of accountability, no kind of giving you any kind of apology. Yeah, and I'm not talking about a fake apology. I'm not say I'm sorry. No, I'm not talking about a fake apology. I'm talking about a real apology. Those are two very different things, right? We all know that. So think about that. If they never apologize for anything, mm-mm, no, ma'am, no, sir. So now this brings me to question number 3. And thank you for whoever I see someone watching with me. Thank you so much. And if you catch this in the replay, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I'll definitely be checking and we'll respond. Now, question number 3 that you will ask them: who have you hurt? And again, did you ever apologize? And we're talking about those real apologies, right? Not just, no, I said I'm sorry. We're talking about those real apologies. Did someone ever, ask them, have they hurt someone? Because we've all hurt somebody at some point, right? We're human. Did they ever apologize? That question requires them to have empathy. Narcissists do not have empathy. It's literally like not in their bloodstream, literally. So, like I said, that question requires empathy. We've all hurt somebody at some point, every single one of us, right? But this issue isn't whether you've hurt someone. The issue is whether you care enough to acknowledge it, right? And you care enough to acknowledge that you've hurt someone. Can this person recognize another person's pain? If you're really just, you're in pain, you're upset, they've hurt you, or what? Can they really recognize and see that you're really hurting? Can they acknowledge that? Can they see that? A narcissist does not understand it. They can't comprehend it. So, can they sit with the discomfort of knowing that they caused it? That's something to think about. They can't handle it. They can't handle it. Can they apologize without, immediately explaining why it wasn't really their fault? Well, I did this and I'm sorry I did this, but, or, I'm sorry that I pushed you on the floor, but, I just couldn't stand to see that stuff and on the floor. And my mama used to beat me whenever I did something. So, that's why I did. No, that's not a real apology. And yeah, that was a real experience that I was just speaking about. That's not a real apology. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. So now, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned, during my journey, my healing journey, is this: people who lack empathy often struggle to understand the damage that they've done. Yeah, they struggle. They don't understand all the pain that they've caused, the damage that they've done. They lack empathy. So if they can't acknowledge it, if they can't acknowledge the damage, then they can't truly change it, right? If they can't acknowledge it, they can't truly change it. So now here's question number 4. What do you do when someone tells you no? How do they handle no? How do they handle rejection? This might be one of the most important questions on the list, because boundaries definitely reveal character, right? Anybody can be kind, when they're getting what they want, right? They love bombing they all happy, everything, you're doing everything that they want you to do. So they all kind and sweet, Anybody can be loving when they're in control, right? If they're in control of the narrative, yeah, they gonna be all loving and sweet because they're getting their way. They're in control. They're in charge. But what happens when they don't get their way? What happens when you see through them? You wake up, take those rose-colored glasses off, and see what happens then, right? What happens when you set a boundary? What happens then? What happens when you say no? And no is a complete sentence, right? Do they respect it? Or do they pressure you? Baby, I really need you to do this for me. I really need that. Or just come on. Yeah, they're doing that. They're not respecting your boundary at all. Because when you already said no, right? So no, they don't respect it. They're pressuring you, trying to manipulate you. Well, I would be able to do this if you just do this for me, or won't you do this for me this one time? Guilt tripping you. Yeah, they're not respecting your boundaries. They can't handle no. Another one they'll do something that's silent treatment. They'll try to punish you with silence. Try to ignore you, make you feel bad, for protecting yourself, right? Come on, that's not love. A healthy person might not like your boundary, but they'll respect it. And I've noticed that I've encountered, different situations, so I know the difference. They'll respect your boundary. Like, okay, well, I understand you said no. Okay. You can't do this, you can't do that, whatever, okay. But a toxic person, they see your boundary as a personal attack, like you just against them, right? Like again, like I said earlier, they think everybody is against them. That's how a toxic person sees you. You respecting yourself. You setting your boundaries, right? It's a huge difference, big difference, right? So this this brings me to question number 5. What's something about yourself that you still need to work on? This is what you asked them. What's something about yourself that you still need to work on? And again, these are the kind of things that you should be asking in the beginning, not a few months down the road. When he starts showing their true colors, you need to start asking these kind of questions on the first date, right? First text message, first phone call. Like, literally start early because they will try to love bomb you. So again, what's something that about yourself? You ask them what's something about themselves that they still need to work on. Because this question here, it can reveal their self-awareness, right? Because the truth is we're all a work in progress, right? None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. And at 50 years old, I'm still growing. I'm still learning about myself, still learning about life, still healing. And if I'm honest, there are all things that I'm working on, right? A lot of still things that I'm working on, a lot of things, right? Because I'm still learning and growing every day. But a person who can identify their weaknesses, they usually have the humility to that's necessary to understand growth, right? They have the humility necessary for growth. So that's the difference. But sometimes someone who acts like they have no flaws at all, they're just perfect, no issues, nothing to improve. Oh, I don't need to work on myself. I've heard that before. They lack self-awareness. The self-awareness that's needed for a healthy relationship. So growth starts with empathy. And honesty starts with self-reflection. Really. So I hope that these tips have helped you some. Something in my eye. But I just want to just share my final thoughts with you guys on this as we close, and just remind you of a few things. The goal is not to interrogate people, right? Like, we're not trying to give them the 3rd degree, okay? The goal is to pay attention. For one, pay attention, right? Listen to their answers. Listen with your ears and your mind, not with your heart and your hormones and all those things, right? Listen and watch their reaction. Hey, Marina, how you doing, sis? Just giving some tips on some questions to ask when you're dating, about narcissistic abusers. And these are just sharing the final thoughts now. But the goal is to pay attention. You listen to their answers, but you got to watch their reaction, how they were out. And I'm not sure if you're dating or married or however, but you watch their reactions. You watch how they handle their accountability. Watch how they handle criticism. Yeah, because you got to be able to handle constructive criticism, right? That's a part of growth. Watch how they handle boundaries. You know, they can't accept no. Watch how they handle, like I said, when they can't handle being told no. That's a big one. Because over time, character it's always gonna reveal itself, right? So if you're currently healing from narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships, emotional manipulation, or betrayal, know this: you are not defined by what happened to you. You are not defined by what happened to you. Even with exactly all red flags, right, Marina. They're all red flags. So you do not have to allow those, right? You have to get out. You have to get out. Exactly. Get out. Exactly. Oh Lord, they trying to Nightbot trying to stop you, Marina. They don't want no capital letters, girl. But yes, those red flags, you really gotta watch those red flags. You gotta watch those red flags. Stop trying to turn them green. Stop trying to turn them, pink or purple. Watch them for what they are, But as you grow, as you heal, you can rebuild. You can learn to trust yourself again. And most importantly, you can choose relationships that are rooted in respect, honesty, accountability, and peace. Okay. Right. They don't like you. Right. Yeah, they don't like you. Oh, you're talking Nightbot. Right. Nightbot don't like you. My Nightbot said, stop yelling, girl. That's right. Exactly. But yeah, we're just coming towards the end of the video. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat while I'm still here. But yeah, choose your relationships, carefully. Make sure that again that they're rooted in respect and honesty and accountability and peace, right? Just remember that. So I just want to thank you all so much for watching. And if this video encouraged you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. And remember, sometimes answers reveal the truth. You just accept that person for who they are, right, and move on. Exactly, Marie. You accept them for who they are. Move. You can't. It's not your job to change them. You can't change them. You accept them for who they are, and let it go, and move on. And that's what you have to do. So take those tips. Y'all hear from one of my audience members as well. leave, accept the person for who they are. Well, I think it was earlier. Matter of fact, I was watching what is her name? The lady who talks about narcissistic abuse a lot. Dr. Ramani or Mara, something like that. She's on YouTube, and she was quoting Maya Angelou when she said that if a person shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Believe them when you see them, when that mask fall off, them true colors come out. Believe them, right? You've dealt with that before. You try to change them, but the reality is they are who they are. Exactly. They are who they are. You cannot change them. You cannot change them. And that's not your job to change them. What you need to worry about is exiting that relationship and protecting yourself. That's what you need to focus on. Not trying to change them, not trying to fix them. Because they'll put on a mask, they'll play a role, and then you're like, okay, wait a minute. Right. Yeah, you can't believe them. Because I can remember it was a time where, I was going through the situation in my last relationship. And I was like, look, I can't deal with this no more. Something got to change. Something. He was like, all right, I'm going to get better. I'm going to do this. And he did. For a minute, right? For a minute, behavior change, nice, respectful, doing all everything you're supposed to do, got a job, looking for the house, doing the stuff around now. All the things that he was supposed to do, started back doing them again, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe, things gonna get better. Child, that mask, he just put that mask back on. That's all that was. He just put the mask back on. So yeah, so you have to be careful. Because, you cannot change them. They are who they are. I mean, they actually have right just to quiet you up. Exactly. They have actually determined today as National Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day, Marina. And I was like, why? And it's been around for a while, but I didn't even know what narcissistic abuse was until I started going through my divorce. And then it was so subtle, but then I still didn't really learn. I saw some of the signs, but I still didn't really know what it was, because then I ended up getting into a relationship with strong narcissistic characteristics. And I did not see it. I did not see it at first. So they are very good at hiding, wearing the mask, covering up, very, very, very talented at it, right? So ladies, be careful, and men, I'm gonna say this. I'm speaking as a woman. I'm not gonna say do all that, ladies, men. I'm speaking as a woman. Men can give their own advice, which they always giving advice to us women on here anyway, right? But yeah, I'm gonna speak for me. You say I'm gonna watch her. Okay, I got you. I know. I'm gonna actually be talking about narcissistic abuse I'm gonna further it out, like probably maybe even tonight. Hey Stephanie, maybe even tonight and tomorrow. I'm gonna be talking about it even more about the narcissistic abuse because it's something that needs to be talked about. It's definitely something that needs to be talked about because our lives are changed like topics like this because so many women, right? So many women go through this. I didn't even know it was such a thing until I, started going through with my marriage and trying to figure out things and started, doing my research and just put in because I didn't search the word, like we do now. I just put in how I was feeling, what I was going through. And narcissistic abuse was all kind of stuff like that was coming up. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what's narcissist? I didn't even know what it was. And until then, and even still, we're learning more about it as we go along. Every day they're doing research, doctors are doing a study on, the people that are narcissistic. It's not just a label or just something to say, it's a real disorder. It's a real disorder. So we have to be careful, especially as women. We have to be careful because these men will prey on you. They will prey, and I mean prey. They will prey on you, really, literally, and destroy you. They will literally try their best to destroy you, to lift themselves up, to make them feel like a man. Yeah. I'm good. I am good. All right. I am good all by myself. But yes, I'm going to be talking about this all week long, or throughout the month of June. Since I don't know why it's just a day. But it should at least be a whole month, right? But I'm not going to just stop talking about it just after the day because it's something that needs to be talked about. Unfortunately, because so many women, you don't know what to look for. You don't realize that you're with someone like this because they can literally hide. They can literally put that mask on and show you a whole different personality than them true selves, right? They have that ability to like almost like shape shifting. They can literally, it's like they can shape shift into something, into what you want them to be, and they'll study you. They will study you. They know the right questions to ask. They know the right things to listen for, to watch about you. But you're just all, oh, he's so fine. He's so, he's cute, he's handsome, smell good, looking right. Mm-mm. Nope. Mm-mm. Uh-uh. Nope. Mm-mm. I ain't going for it no more. I got me a couple times. I ain't going for it no more, right? No, I'm not. But I'm thankful that I made it out of that relationship, or those relationships rather. And by the grace of God, because they will take you through some things. So yeah, I'm gonna be talking about this more throughout the month. And y'all know right now I might be popping in from whatever time to time. But I'm gonna be talking about it because it needs to be. You just gave me confirmation. The Lord gave me confirmation through you, Marina, that yeah, this is definitely something that it can't get talked about enough. It cannot get talked about enough. So yeah, amen. Exactly. It cannot be talked about enough at all. So I'm just thankful for the Lord to continue to use me. That I made it through, my situation. I may even read parts of the book later or either tomorrow, of this, some of the things that I went through. Not the marriage, because I haven't written that actual story just yet, which the Lord keep tugging on me. I know I gotta write it. I only wrote that in poetry because, like I said, I didn't fully understand it then, and I understand more now than I did back then. So, but I'm gonna be sharing more with you guys, and so that we can all learn and grow. Understand our sisters, friends, and all. What they going through. Because sometimes if you ain't going through it, you're not gonna understand, right? You're not gonna understand, what they went through, what they going through, because you never experienced that. So yeah, it needs to be talked about. It does need to be talked about. So yeah, y'all join me. I'll make sure, well, I try my best to remember, and I'll tag you guys when I do come back on. But yeah, I'm gonna be coming back on more talking about this. If it's not once a week, it might be a couple of days in a row, but I know it needs to be talked about. So I thank y'all so much for coming in here with me. Make sure y'all, of course, y'all know, like and share it out, people that need to hear it. And stay tuned for the next video. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I'll talk to y'all later. Love y'all. All right.